Hi, and welcome to episode 54 of Toke Signals TV, where we bring you the biggest in cannabis and hemp news stories every week. I'm Steve Elliott, the editor at tokesignals.com, and I'll be guiding you through the news. After we look at our Toke Signals Bud Pick of the Week, we have some dynamite indica dominant here. I found this for $10 a gram at Choice Wellness on Aurora Avenue in Seattle, and it's a good buy. Let's do the news now, shall we? In the United States, banks are at last offering financial services to marijuana businesses. A top federal official on Tuesday said that 105 banks and credit unions are now doing business with legal marijuana merchants, and suggested that revised federal rules giving financial institutions the green light to provide services to cannabis businesses are starting to work. The financial institutions in question cover about a third of the United States and have reported relationships with marijuana-related businesses, the top U.S. anti-money laundering official said, and that's from the Wall Street Journal. The Obama administration in February gave the go-ahead to the banking industry to offer financing and accounts to marijuana distributors who are legally conducting their business according to state laws. From our perspective, the guidance is having the intended effect, said Jennifer Shasky-Calvary, director of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It is facilitating access to financial services while ensuring that this activity is transparent and that the funds are going into regulated financial institutions. Some marijuana entrepreneurs hailed the February policy change as a step towards bringing cannabis commerce into the mainstream financial system. But banking groups said the federal guidance did little to relieve their fears of doing business with companies whose products remain illegal under federal law. Banks are required to file suspicious activity reports when serving a marijuana-related business. More than 1,000 such reports were filed between February 14th and August 8th, according to Shasky. Most of those showed that cannabis-related businesses are complying with state laws and federal guidelines. Calvary did not provide the names of the banks servicing marijuana businesses or the states where they are located. Before February's federal guidance, banks had to notify federal regulators of suspicious or illicit activity such as moving money from drug dealing. The new rules established 3 categories of marijuana-related reports to address conflicts. The Department of the Treasury said that banks could file a marijuana limited report that says the business is following government guidelines, including ensuring that sales revenue doesn't wind up in the hands of criminal enterprises. Calvary said that banks have filed 502 of those reports since the guidance was issued in February. If the bank believes the dealer's revenue isn't exclusively from legal sales, then it must file a marijuana priority report to alert federal regulators. There have been 123 of those filed, according to Calvary. When a bank decides to end its relationship with a cannabis seller, it must then file a marijuana termination report, which accounts for 475 of the reports received since February, Calvary said. Banks are still worried about doing anything to raise concerns among their regulators, which is why we need Congress to change the law, said Don Childers, president of the Colorado Bankers Association. Our members that are working with the banks are being told not to talk about it, said Taylor West, spokeswoman for the National Cannabis Industry Association. The system created by the Obama administration is so heavy on regulation, it has not led to a tidal wave of openings in a way that we had hoped, West said. But West called it encouraging to see more banks starting to work with the marijuana industry. We still need a long-term sustainable solution, and that comes in the form of policy or congressional action, she said. In Canada this week, medical marijuana edibles and topicals ban was ruled unconstitutional. Canada's ban on medical marijuana edibles and body creams is unconstitutional, according to a BC Court of Appeals judge on Thursday. This judge instructed Parliament to recraft the Controlled Drugs and Substance Act to allow medicinal cannabis patients to use products made from cannabis extracts, including creams, salves, oils, brownies, cakes, cookies, and chocolate bars. The court challenge came from the case of Owen Smith, who was charged with marijuana trafficking for baking cannabis cookies and producing topical cannabis creams for a Victoria Medical Marijuana Club in 2009. Smith was caught baking more than 200 marijuana cookies for the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and had a supply of cannabis-infused cooking oils and some dried marijuana in his apartment when he was arrested. He was acquitted in April 2012 after the BC Supreme Court ruled Canada's medical marijuana regulations were unconstitutional because patients were denied access to edible products and other derivatives. Supreme Court Justice Robert Johnson ruled that allowing dried cannabis flowers alone was arbitrary and did little to further any legitimate state interest. Health Canada currently allows patients suffering from debilitating illnesses to access dried marijuana flowers for medicinal purposes. The Canadian government had hoped the BC Court of Appeal would strike down the BC Supreme Court decision allowing edibles and topicals. But marijuana advocates across the country said patients rely on these derivatives to treat serious medical problems. Moving to South America, in Chile this week, a housewife is being billed as Latin America's first legal medical marijuana patient. A 48-year-old woman in Chile has become the first legal medicinal cannabis patient in Latin America after being granted special permission by the Institute for Public Health due to having both systemic lupus and breast cancer. I feel like I am burning up inside, Cecilia Hayter said. Everything hurts. I don't have the strength to take a step, and I often have to use a wheelchair. My body rejects opiates, so cannabis is the only thing that works for me. Hayter, a mother of two, will be treated with Sativex, extracted from cannabis, with equal amounts of tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, and cannabidiol, CBD. Sativex isn't considered to be psychoactive, as the CBD mediates the effects of the THC. Although she's already permitted to take Sativex, a new law will have to be rushed through Chile's Congress to allow the public health system to pay for it. The process will take at least 2 more months. With Sativex costing more than $3,000 monthly, Hayter simply cannot afford the stuff without government help. I am very happy and grateful to the parliamentarians, she said, but I don't see why my case had to become so emblematic for this to change. Too many people have suffered because of this taboo. Hayter, on the advice of a physician, began using cannabis early last year after the pain became unbearable. Her first shipment of Sativex from the United Kingdom, where it is produced by pharma giant GW Pharmaceutical, is still weeks away, but she already takes cannabis in food and by smoking joints. That isn't permitted by Chilean law, but for a while now, cannabis for personal use hasn't been actually punished. Hayter said she had only tried marijuana once before her illness as a teenager and didn't enjoy it. No nation in Latin America, including Chile, has laws that allow or regulate medical marijuana. It is a very significant step, according to Ana Maria Gazmuri, president of the Daya Foundation, which lobbies for alternative medicine in Chile. In a legal gray area, a foundation run by Gazmuri is using cannabis to help treat 20 youngsters from 3 months to 17 years old treat epilepsy or similar conditions. Marijuana is the only medicine that stops the frequent and often dangerous seizures that these kids have, according to Gazmuri. Hayter's breakthrough has inspired one political party, Amplitude, to propose a bill that would decriminalize growing marijuana at home for both recreational and medicinal uses. Amplitude, interestingly, is a center-right political party. That bill is just one of several being debated in Chile that could also authorize the country's public health system to incorporate cannabis-derived medicines. At least one of those is expected to make it through Chile's Congress in the next few months. Few Chilean citizens oppose medical marijuana. One recent poll, in fact, found 78% in favor. And in Australia, a quick letdown from last week's hopeful story, the Norfolk Island medical marijuana approval has been overturned by the Australian Commonwealth. It was a short-lived triumph. The approval of medical marijuana that had been granted by Norfolk Island's government was overturned on Thursday. The island's administrator, former Liberal MP Gary Hardgrave, vetoed the decision made by Norfolk Island authorities. Hardgrave said the license issued to THC under Section 7A of the Dangerous Drugs Act's 1997 provision, which was included for the purpose of establishing an industrial hemp industry on Norfolk Island. He said there is no reasonable prospect of a hemp industry being established on Norfolk Island in the near future, and Tascan's proposal to cultivate cannabis for medical treatments is fundamentally different to and inconsistent with that purpose. The Australian government has a range of obligations under international law regarding the cultivation and trade of illicit drugs, Hardgrave said. The license issued to Tascan may not adequately address these obligations, and it was issued without consulting the relevant federal authorities. This smacks of U.S. meddling and is a further instance of monopoly medical marijuana, with GW being the only provider globally, Mark Heinrich of Australia told Hemp News early Thursday. In Australia, we believe Novartis has been meddling and lobbying the feds to force this outcome. GW Pharmaceutical has entered into an exclusive license agreement for Novartis to commercialize Sativex THC CBD spray in Australia and New Zealand, Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Under the terms of that agreement, Novartis has exclusive commercialization rights to Sativex and will act as marketing authorization holder. GW will be responsible for the manufacture and supply to Novartis. According to the Pharmaceutical Management Agency, the New Zealand government agency that decides which drugs are subsidized, an average annual prescription of Sativex costs about $20,000 Australian. That's about $16,650 United States. Earlier this month, island authorities had given Tasman Health Cannabinoids, THC, approval to grow medical cannabis, as well as import and export it. That trial had originally been proposed for Tasmania, about 1,300 miles away from Norfolk Island, but also administered by Australia. But the Liberal government in Tasmania there rejected the bid, claiming concerns over safety and security, as well as potential damage to the state's lucrative poppy industry, a much more likely reason. The reasons were exactly the same reasons we were given in Tasmania recently, suggesting that we hadn't addressed all the concerns that the government had, THC CEO Troy Langman said. Langman said he was notified of the Norfolk Island decision via email. Now attention shifts back to Tasmania for the plan, according to Langman. We'll never give up on Tasmania, he said. Tasmania offers a particular climate that suits important genetics, cultivars, or strains that we'd like to grow. Tasmanian Shadow Attorney General Lara Giddings said the Norfolk Island decision had put more pressure on Tasmania and Australia to resolve their legal issues with medical marijuana. It is ridiculous that Liberal governments and their appointees are finding reasons to stop the development of a medicinal cannabis industry rather than help a properly regulated and administered industry grow in line with poppies, she said. Norfolk Island Health Minister Robin Adams had said earlier this month that she thought medical marijuana was a great opportunity both for the economy of Norfolk Island whilst providing a much-needed product for export. And in Florida this week, things are getting kind of crazy in the medical marijuana battle there. An anti-pot group claims medical marijuana could lead to date rape. That's right, an anti-marijuana group in the Sunshine State is making new claims that legalizing cannabis for medicinal purposes could lead to date rape. The group No On 2 recently posted an ad on Facebook asking, "Will the face of date rape look like a cookie?" In the ad, a man and woman are portrayed hugging with an arrow pointing to a photoshopped cannabis cookie in the man's back pocket. I absolutely thought it was fake, said Florida State Senator Jeff Clemens, who supports medical marijuana. I thought it was a joke. The ad opposes Amendment 2, which will appear on the Florida ballot in November. If the amendment gets 60% or more of the vote, it would legalize medical marijuana in the Sunshine State. Senator Clemens said he simply couldn't believe No On 2 would post such an outrageous ad. I think any woman should find that offensive to somehow suggest that if you use medical marijuana to deal with a health issue, that somehow that's going to make you more susceptible to rape, Senator Clemens said. It's really beyond the pale. Hundreds of people commented on the ad on the No On 2 Facebook page, with most of them saying it was inappropriate and offensive. Today's pot cookies and other pot candy is not your daddy's pot brownie from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, reads a statement by spokesperson Javi Corioso of No On 2. Amendment 2 allows for marijuana products, and the idea of a pot cookie with a high level of THC being abused is scary and dangerous. Senator Clemens said he doesn't think voters will believe the date rape message displayed in the ad when they vote at the polls in November. They understand that this is medicine that can help people, and that it's not going to lead people to the kind of things that this campaign is alleging, Senator Clemens said. Speaking of marijuana edibles, in Washington State this week, the very first recreational marijuana edibles were sold legally. The first products in the state of Washington were sold a month after cannabis itself went on sale in state-licensed stores. Due to strict regulations from the Washington State Liquor Control Board, no kitchens had been approved for producing marijuana edibles last month when cannabis sales began on July 8th. Al Olson, the marijuana editor at CNBC.com, bought the first approved edibles in Bellingham, Washington, at a store called Top Shelf Cannabis. Let's pause just a short moment and enjoy the fact that CNBC.com now has a marijuana editor. And not only that, but it's a really nice guy, my friend Al Olson. Back to the story. The edibles available were Green Chief Crazy Carnival Nuts, 420 Party Mix, and Twisted Trail Mix. And Al Olson bought about $200 worth of those, as well as a vaporizer pen and a vape pen battery. The marijuana-infused nut clusters, trail mix, and party mix cost around $25 a bag. Top Shelf opened at 10 p.m. on Wednesday in order to be the first store to sell the products, according to owner John Ebich. It's something interesting and fun, Ebich said. Going down a list of menu items, I think it's something new for people. The Liquor Control Board in June had adopted emergency rules requiring its specific approval for every product, including packaging and labeling, before edibles reached store shelves. Edibles containing more than one serving had to be marked to show serving sizes to help avoid accidental overconsumption by inexperienced marijuana consumers. We're going to wind up with two stories from Colorado, where, of course, Amendment 64 continues to be implemented to almost entirely positive effects. First story, Governor Hickenlooper uses scare tactics in his marijuana prevention campaign. Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper has introduced his administration's marijuana prevention campaign to deter underage consumption. Unfortunately, it uses scare tactics rather than a reality-based approach. The campaign is slated to waste $2 million of taxpayer money. The theme of this campaign is marijuana's potential impact on the developing adolescent brain, using the slogan, "Don't be a lab rat." The administration plans to place human-sized rat cages throughout the city of Denver, particularly at high-traffic bus stops. Now, while this is flashy and memorable, no doubt, the campaign has raised concerns among advocates who question the credibility of this message and this approach. Drug policy reformers and prevention experts invoke the cynicism generated by 1980s-era scare tactic efforts, such as the notorious "This is your brain on drugs" ad that showed that egg frying, remember? Widely recognized today as far more attention-grabbing than drug deterring. Advocates recommend instead an approach that focuses on credible drug education delivered through programs and initiatives that focus on overall youth health and development. Reality-based efforts engage students and prevent the cynicism resulting from simplistic scare tactics. Furthermore, to be successful, parents and/or guardians should be directly involved in drug education and prevention efforts. According to recent data from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, high school marijuana use rates past 30 days declined between 2011 and 2013 from 22% down to 20% compared to a national average of 23%. What it comes down to is, are the ads intended to scare them or are the ads intended to inform them? Asked Mason DeVert of the Marijuana Policy Project, who helped craft and pass Amendment 64, the voter-approved initiative that legalized marijuana in Colorado in 2012. These ads are intended to scare them, DeVert said. "We are aware that this campaign is in its infancy and not fully funded at this point," said Jerry Otero, Youth Policy Manager of the Drug Policy Alliance. "Our goal is to continue good relations with the governor's office and help shape this campaign for the better moving forward. Ultimately, we hope to reveal that a youth development approach is a more realistic, honest, and effective way to help kids avoid problems with drugs and other problem behaviors," Otero said. "This is where we need to focus our energy and tax revenue, providing infrastructure for schools and youth organizations to provide programs and initiatives to help youth develop into critical community assets and agents of change, capable of transforming their environments and ready to take on more responsible roles within their neighborhoods and communities." Our second Colorado story, a company has announced the development of a marijuana pizza. Marijuana, it seems, often leads to pizza, and now at least one company is cutting to the chase and combining the two. Unique Pizza and Subs Corporation on Tuesday announced it will explore the possibility of developing a signature unique pizza with cannabis infused into it. The company said it believes with the increasing demand for marijuana in Colorado under legalization that it will utilize Dr. Reddy's world-renowned skills, laboratories, and test kitchen to develop a signature line of marijuana-enhanced unique pizzas that could be sold at adult bars and nightclubs throughout the state. Utilizing Dr. Reddy's superior scientific technology affords the company a unique opportunity to explore the various possibilities in a fast-growing marijuana industry, the company's prepared statement says. After the legalization of cannabis, Colorado began the testing of marijuana edible products on May 1st, putting the state in the developmental forefront of the industry. Unique Pizza would like to be on the vanguard of the hot and ready edible cannabis industry and believe that bringing together Dr. Reddy's superior scientific skills with Unique Pizza's industry-leading gourmet taste is the perfect blend of flavors to lead this new frontier, the press release reads. We started our discussion about the possibility of developing a line of marijuana pizzas back in April, according to James Fowler, CEO and president of Unique Pizza and Subs. He said since then our casual discussions have led us to beginning the necessary steps to start developing prototypes of unique cannabis gourmet pizza. That's it for this week. I hope you will choose to join us next time, and until then, stay lifted.